Good afternoon. I'm Sallie Krawcheck, class of 1987. You will be relieved to hear I'm not going to talk about the big financial institutions. You're welcome. What I am going to talk about, I am now on. Anybody here like the idea of increasing the size of our economy by close to 10%? Anybody here willing to think about a topic that in some cases has been talked to death? Anyone here willing to think differently in order to grow our economy by about 10%? Can we all agree, being forward-thinking, intelligent Moreheads, that diversity in business is a good idea? Can I convince you that it's not just a good idea because we're good people who believe in fairness, but that it's the right business thing to do? All the women, yep, you can convince me. The guys, I want to hear a little bit more. I was a research analyst. Study after study after study after study has shown, perhaps it's just coincidence, but has shown across industries that companies that have greater diversity within their ranks and at the senior management level deliver better returns with lower volatility than those without. And not just returns that are a little bit better, returns that are better on the order of 30+%. I'm not up here, I'm talking about gender diversity today, and I'm not up here to tell you that women are better than men, at least in this speech. I'm here to say that women are different than men. And study after study shows that we women tend to be more risk averse than you gentlemen, tend to think a little bit more long term, tend to be a little bit more customer focused. And it's a result of that combination of men and women that has been demonstrated to deliver better financial results. So these facts, while you might not know the exact facts, are pretty well accepted in corporate America. It's sort of the forward-thinking thing to do. And yet, for the past 5 to 10 years, we in America have stalled out in terms of the progress of our diversity initiatives. Today, women are CEOs of about 3% of Fortune 500 companies, the same that they've been. Women at direct to the CEO levels have stalled out at about 15% of corporate America. And in fact, and here I will mention the big banks, in fact, in the big financial institutions, those numbers are less and have stalled out as well. Now, the financial institutions, big banks, went into the downturn white, middle-aged, and male. They have come out of the downturn whiter, middle-ageder, and maler. And this is an industry, by the way, that could use a little bit of long-term focus. Now, this is where I always say I do want to have one caveat. I like middle-aged white males. I've actually been married to a couple of them. So I'm not the first to lay out this problem. And so we've had an entire industry that has popped up to solve the wrong problem. We exhort women to try harder. We have best-selling books telling them how to ask for a raise. We spend a lot of time exhorting men to be more sensitive to women. P.S., a recent study from Yale University showed that Yale University women science professors were every bit as tough on and biased against female students as their male counterparts. So we have an entire industry that has, for the past 10 to 15 years, hit the same nail with the same hammer again and again and again. And we're seeing that the returns on this are significantly diminishing. So maybe it's time that we think differently and that we look for a different path forward. Maybe it's time we recognize that one more diversity committee may not be the right thing to do, and that the workplace of today looks more like Mad Men than what it's going to look like in 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. And that path, I think, part of the path to a sustainable solution, indeed to a more sustainable capitalism, is in part recognizing that, and I want everybody to hold on to your seat, take a deep breath, because I'm about to say something controversial. Part of the path is recognizing that women are different than men. And one big difference, we're tired. Okay, you're thinking, I know why we're tired. It's that overt discrimination. I'm not going there. It's the subtle discrimination. It's the cascading bias. I'm not going there. I'm not even going to the fact that we do 3 times the childcare and twice the housework as you gentlemen. I'm not going there. I'm going someplace different. I'm going to the hair and makeup. I'm serious. This struck me several years ago when I was the CFO of Citi, and I was with a group of guys. We were in Brazil. We'd been up late the night before. We had an early plane to catch, and they came down, and they said, oh, I'm so tired. I just rolled out of bed. I'm like, honey, I've been up for an hour. Make a point. Let's assume a woman, is low maintenance, unlike me. Let's assume she only takes 15 minutes a day for hair and makeup, just 15 minutes, nothing. That's nothing. It's an hour and 15 minutes a week. It's 5 hours a month. It's 60 hours a year on hair and makeup, more than, check my math, more than 1 week a year on hair and makeup, and I haven't even shaved my legs yet. And so before we even get to the little issues, to the big issues, we have to recognize the solution may not be simply exhorting women to try harder. And so I would propose a new approach to this, a new way of thinking that recognizes there are differences between men and women, and those differences aren't going away anytime soon. We have today 5.5 million women who are staying at home and taking care of their children because they want to, but also because women get tired. Women get tired, and some number of these women want to economically re-engage, economically contribute. More surprisingly, perhaps, 60% of women who work full-time, who have minor children, 60% wish they had flexibility. And this kind of flexibility is enabled, likely for the first time in our history, through technology. The smart companies going forward, and we're starting to see this out in California, will begin to embrace flexibility without shame. That one size does not fit all, that women or people will sometimes want to work full-time, more than full-time, but there'll be points in their lives when they want to work part-time. There'll be points in their lives where they want to work remotely, for shorter periods of time, perhaps, maybe from other parts of the world, that you can be part of a team even if you're not daily seeing somebody face-to-face, but instead seeing them through technology. Seen your kids Skype recently? The more innovative companies I know and have spoken to about this say they'd rather have a happy, engaged, energized employee for 30 hours a week than a distracted, worried about what's happening at home employee for 60 hours a week, which is what they have now. It's like the way we've learned that our kids learn better if they're engaged and interested, not if we're forcing them to do it. And so for some, we will begin to look at our work life not as a corporate ladder, but as a corporate lattice, where the only movement isn't just up, but sometimes can be to the side, up, back, to the side. And that can keep many more women economically engaged today than is the case. And with more women staying engaged, more women can therefore make it to the top. Because by the way, guys, we live 8 years longer than you do. Let me give you one short real-life example. I worked at Citigroup. We had some good businesses. We had some not-so-good businesses. We actually had a couple of great businesses. And one of our great businesses was our consumer bank in Japan. The consumer bank in Japan, we had a set strategy of going out and hiring a talented group of individuals who the Japanese banks were not particularly interested in. And those were Japanese women. And therefore, we had a talent competitive advantage that they could not match and earn returns not just that were above the company average, but at the very best, at the very top of the company average, and won award after award after award for customer service while allowing the kind of flexibility and accessing a talent group that others didn't have. So as I said, while it's not easy to change our perception, gee, if you're on a team, don't you all have to sit together? Grandpa. But changing our thinking about this is not a small opportunity. If we can get this right and more economically engage that portion of the population who has stepped out of the workforce, we can expand our GDP by close to 10%. And innovative companies are already starting on this to get a talent edge. All it takes is a recognition of what the facts are, not what we want them to be, not what's politically correct, but what they are, the use of technology, and a movement in our country to flexibility without shame. Thank you.